Alright, hello and welcome everyone to Truth, Lies and Hair Ties. You'll need 4 today. I'm just going to do 4 braids and it's going to come right to the corner here. So for those of you who haven't joined me yet, I do already have 3 episodes about captive orcas, so if you have any interest at all, don't forget to subscribe down below. I thought I would only be able to fit in about 4 episodes on this topic, but the more I've been digging, the more stories I have uncovered, so I think this will be going on for quite some time. Okay, as I said, you're going to need to start with a side parting. You're definitely going to need to be able to Dutch braid. So instead of just doing 2 Dutch braids, we're basically going to be doing 4. But I'm going to take this down to the side. So roughly around there. I'm just tie this out of the way. And then you're going to want to part this and try and get it equal, which is always a little bit difficult. I tend to use this side of the comb when doing that. Just bring it all the way down. Okay, so this is the one that we want to braid first, so I'm going to tie this one out of the way. And as you can see, I'm dragging the hair up and over. And that's where we want to tie it, because we don't want it flopping over, because it will be difficult to braid this one. Okay, brilliant. So now we've got this one that we're going to start with, and we're just going to be braiding it all the way down like that. Okay, so we're going to start with a whale called Orcas II. Now, he was actually captured in Canada in 1968, and he was taken to the Marine Land of the Pacific Park, which is the very first park that I spoke about in the first episode. But it was a very basic park. There was only a couple of pools, and towards the end, it was looking pretty run down. But at that time, Orky met a lovely female orca called Corky, and they quickly became the best of friends, which eventually blossomed into love. And they actually had the first captive orca to be born alive that was also caught on camera, although unfortunately he only survived for about 18 days, so it was quite sad. Now, I know in other episodes I've spoken about orcas not getting along with each other because they're from completely different pods. But I don't want you to think that no friendships were made. And Orky and Corky were actually together in the park for 17 years. So that does make me feel just a little bit better. Now, unfortunately, Orky, he was a little bit moody and he was ever so slightly aggressive, which did lead to a few incidents. In 1978, a trainer called Jill Stratton was grabbed by Orky, dragged to the bottom of the tank and kept there for almost 4 minutes. Quite a long time. Now, after that, I think it was the head trainer, Tim Desmond, said that they wouldn't regularly use him for waterworks as, they thought it was unsafe. I'm not quite sure what that means regularly. If it was me, I'd make sure that no one was in the water when Orky was around. So I don't know if that meant that Orky was still used in shows, but no one was in the water at the time of the show. I'm not quite sure. Now, in 1987, a SeaWorld owner actually took over the Marineland Park. His name was, I never remember it, Harcourt Brace Jovanich, and he basically promised that he wouldn't move the orcas and he would keep the park open. Not long after, Orky and Corky were trucked to San Diego, the park was closed and 300 staff lost their jobs. So he built a fantastic reputation for himself. Now, I also wanted to find out how the logistics of that would work, you know, getting a whale on a truck. So I managed to find a few photos. Apparently what they would do is they would lower the water so it was more difficult for the whales to move around, but making it easier to get them into the sling, which was attached to a crane. They would then be lifted out and then put into a container that was on a truck. Apparently, Orky was quite calm. I don't know if he knew what was going on, but he, you know, he didn't panic or anything. But it was actually Corky who had a bit of a problem, and she apparently was really, really distressed. But I think they were kind of able to communicate with each other. I guess she, you know, could see or hear that Orky was okay. So I think, you know, he was able to sort of calm her down. But still, you know, you don't know what's going on. It's not particularly nice, and it's a very long drive. But I guess the trainers tried to look after them, you know, as much as possible before they arrived at their new home in San Diego. When Orky arrived, he immediately started training, but he was learning new tricks and new ways that he's not used to, because obviously SeaWorld is a completely different system. And some of the trainers think that the management pushed Orky a little bit too much, too quickly, you know, to break him in. And if you're a horse rider, you'll probably know what that means. You know, if a horse hasn't been broken before, it basically means they haven't been ridden. And I guess it's the same for the whales. You know, if there are certain tricks that they haven't done before, they need to build up that respect with their trainer. You know, it's a lengthy procedure. It's not really something that you can rush. Sounds like they made his transition a little bit more difficult than perhaps it needed to be. So in 1987, there was an incident with a man called John Sillick. This is actually quite a well-known one, and there is a video of it that's, well, the video shows exactly what happened. It was during a show when John was sitting on the back of an orca when, well, Orky at that point would have been 5 ton, basically came out of the water, and instead of going over, he crashed right down on top of John. Now, if you can imagine 5 compact cars crushing down on you, as you can imagine, it would have been quite painful. So it doesn't exactly look like an orca attack. I mean, maybe the whale was a little bit frustrated, but it does look like perhaps the timing was off. I think they signal sometimes to whales as to what to do, and maybe there was just a miscalculation. He was badly injured. In fact, there are a lot of people that said he was very, very lucky to still be alive, but this is what he had. He had severe fractures to both his hips, his pelvis, his ribs, his legs. He had to have 6 operations in just over a year. He had to have lots of pins, plates, and screws. He also had a permanent plate inserted in his pelvis, and all of his thoracic vertebrae permanently fused together. So apparently he can still walk, but I think it sounds very limited. All right, so I've done one braid. So let's start with the other one. As you can see, I've just gone. I wanted to make sure it's nice and flat. So remember, when you're braiding, not to pull out the braid, try and keep your hands as flat to your head as possible. So after this incident, quite a few changes were made in SeaWorld, which is quite good. They said they wouldn't be riding on the backs of the whales. In fact, they'd keep the trainers out of the water when doing performances, you know, which I think was great, although we know at some point the trainers were allowed back into the water. I don't know if this was due to management changing, or maybe they got new directors, but at some point they decided, yeah, it's okay, we'll put humans back into the water again. So it was a little bit of a break, but not for very long. And there was quite a few people actually who got fired due to this incident. I'll get the names up here. Chief Trainer Butcher was dismissed. The Zoological Director and Veterinarian Lanny H. Cornwell, and SeaWorld San Diego President Jan Solch. But apparently some other trainers said they weren't really surprised that there was another incident with Orky because, as I said earlier, he was known for being quite moody, a little bit disruptive during the shows, and did, often show aggression as well. So who knows what really happened, whether it was an accident or an attack. So now we're moving on to a whale called Can-Do 5, who was captured in 1977 in Iceland. Now, she was quite a dominant female, which also made her a little bit moody and also slightly aggressive. She actually had a daughter with Orky, who I just was talking about, and was known for being quite disruptive during shows, just the same as Orky as well. And there are quite a few incidents with her too. So in 1984, a trainer called Joanne Hay was held against a tank wall during a performance, and the whale only let go when another trainer jammed his fist into the whale's blowhole, which doesn't sound particularly nice, but I think, it definitely saved Joanne from having any sort of permanent damage. Then in 1986, a trainer called Mark Beeler was also held against a wall during a live performance. So there was probably roughly around 100 people watching as this happened. And just a year later, Can-Do 5 struck again. It was in 1987 with a trainer in San Diego called Jonathan Smith was grabbed by one of the whales. Now at the time there was Canoe and Can-Do 5 in the tank, so they're not really sure which one grabbed him first, but he was taken down to the bottom, and at that point he was actually in the mouth of one of the whales. So by the time he got to the surface he was actually already bleeding, but he actually waved to the audience, I guess to sort of reassure them that, he was okay. But just at that moment, the other whale came out and crashed back down on top of him. And they continuously took him down to the bottom of the tank and up again. So again, this is quite a traumatic video to watch. Luckily it is a little bit blurred, so you can't really see everything, and you can't see any blood or anything. That's only, what was reported. But the damage that he sustained was he was cut all the way around his torso, a ruptured kidney, a 6-inch laceration on his liver. So I think he is very, very lucky to be alive today.
So now we're moving on to 2002 with a lady called Tamerie Tollison. She was apparently training with the whales. I don't know if she was sitting near the back pool or near the main pool, but it looked quite secluded. She was sitting cross-legged and she was putting her foot in and out, while the whales splash an orchid. I think you know what's going to happen next. One of them grabbed her foot, pulled her in, and kept her from reaching the surface. Now, unfortunately, she didn't have a spotter, but a customer was able to find a trainer who really quickly decided to open the gate to Kasataka, who was the more dominant female, and luckily the other two did let go.
Okay, and then I always like to leave a little bit out here. I always think it just shapes my face slightly, so I'm just gonna, I know I'm gonna look a bit weird for a while. I'm just gonna leave that there. So as I said, Tamerie was grabbed in by her foot, but when she gets out of the water, her feet seem to be okay. She's able to, just about walk on them all right. But it's her arm, and you quickly realise in the video that there is something not right. Her arm looks completely unnatural, and it's sort of bent back in a really, really strange way. And you can see that, there's puncture wounds there as well. So again, a bit of a warning on that one as well. Again, though, the video is a little bit fuzzy, so you can't absolutely see everything, but you can definitely see that there's puncture wounds, there's blood. It's not nice. I think when she went to the hospital, she had to have a pin in her arm to reset the fracture. So I'm sure that was very, very painful. Um, Now, obviously, I wouldn't wish this on anyone at all, but I'll leave it up to you to decide whether or not she made mistakes. But I really do think one of the main ones was not having a spotter. And then I think putting her foot in and out, in and out, in and out was a little bit odd. It looked a bit strange. I'm not quite sure, again, what training she was doing with them. So, yeah, it's a little bit strange. Then in 2004, there was a trainer called Steve Aibel who was working with a whale called Kaikote, or Kai for short. And he was actually performing in San Diego. And during a performance, Kai obviously got a little bit frustrated and basically started to jump on top of Steve, making it pretty much impossible for him to get out of the water. And there is one point in the video where you see Steve almost get out. You can see a trainer is just about to pull him, and Kai comes from nowhere and just pushes him back over again. And he does that for quite some time. Luckily, he does manage to get out on the other side of the tank, and he does seem to be unharmed, obviously just very exhausted and very shaken up. But I did read in one report, he said that, even though Kai was thrashing around, he did actually try and stay as calm as possible. I guess he decided, this is what's going to happen. She's going to keep jumping on top of me. And you do see in the video that he sort of knows when it's going to happen, so he tries to sort of dive down underneath as well, so that you know so that she doesn't hurt him as much. And he just said he waited. He waited until Kai calmed down. He had no idea how long that was going to take. But I mean, I guess at least he wasn't being dragged down to the bottom and held there for a long time, because that's even more terrifying when you don't actually know when you're going to be brought up to the surface again. Also, it's not quite so nice having, I don't know what she weighed, but anything more or less than 5 ton is quite a lot crashing down on you. So I'm sure that would have been quite distressing as well. Oh, and guess who Kai's father was? Yeah, it was Tillicon. That really friendly, non-aggressive whale? Isn't she lucky to have had his genes? And what's scary is I feel like I've only just touched the tip of the iceberg, because there are so many more incidents that have happened. And actually, I found most of these things on Wikipedia. And it first says, attacks that have happened during the wild, but no fatalities towards humans. And the list is very small. And then when it says, orca attacks in captivity, well, the list just goes on and on and on. And don't forget, these are just the ones that have been documented, but I'm sure there are a hell of a lot more that you can discover and find. And I mean, I'm just basically touching on SeaWorld at the moment, but the more that I've been digging, the more I've realised that there are parks all around the world. I've also been looking at deaths, because, as I said, in the wild they can, I don't know if the average is about 50 or 60, but they have been known to get up to 80 or 90 years old, whereas the numbers are a hell of a lot lower in captivity, unfortunately. Some can be as low as a couple of days. I think they've had lots of stillborns as well in captivity. but I think even some of the ones that have been captured elsewhere and brought to the parks, you know, they've maybe survived for about 20 or 25 years, you know, and in comparison to the wild, that's really not a particularly long time. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly finish off this hairstyle, and then I'm going to show you a few trinkets that you can put in at the end.
I miss you, though you've been in my life for 2 days. But those days were the closest to a dream I could ever get. Was it all? Was it all?
Okay, so once you've got all your braids going to one side, this is the fun time where you can decorate it all. So I absolutely love these hair cuffs. So you can get these on eBay. I get a packet of 50 for like, I don't know, £3–4, so it's not overly expensive. Now I'm wearing pink and purple today, so I think those are the sort of colours I'm going to go for. Purple and silver. Right, here we go. So we've got one purple. I'm going to put that one, I'm going to put it here. And I'm going to put the other one, I'm going to put it here. Like so. I've also got these lovely silver ones. So these are a little bit longer than the normal ones. I think they're a little bit more expensive, but these tend to last quite a long time because I like to reuse mine. Obviously not the ones that I give to customers, but I have my own little dish that I try and use, you know, at least 3 or 4 times. But these seem to just keep going on and on, which is great. So for this one, I'm going to put it here. And I'm thinking right at the front, about here. And I haven't got one on there yet, so let's put another silver one on that one. There we go. And I'm obsessed with these little hair trinkets, and they are shells, which I think are really cool. So they look like that. They're really, really cute. They're great for summer, even though I know we're sort of coming into winter now, but never mind. I'm going to put one, I think, about here. There we go. I'm going to have that hanging there. And then I'm going to choose this one that's a little bit bigger, but I'm going to have it on the other side now. I'm going to have it here. I'm going to have that one there. And now I'm just going to go crazy and add on as much as I want.
Your eyes fixing my hopelessness. Now you're far, far away, and all I get is wait for your arrival. Kiss, kiss, kiss through the fallen leaves. Will you reach my lips, baby? Ooh, kiss, kiss, kiss through the fallen leaves. Will you reach my lips, baby?
So you can leave the braids exactly like this, or you can also tie it with some ribbon as well if you want to. I usually just have a few scarves laying around, so sometimes if you want to, you can actually just tie all of the braids together if you want. I'm just going to wrap this round a few times, like so, and then do a nice big bow, like that. So again, it's completely up to you how you would like to wear it, but so that is the end of episode 4. I hope you enjoyed it. The next episode, I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into the causes of deaths with the orcas that are in captivity. You know, what are the reasons why they're not surviving so long? Okay, well, until next time, don't forget to subscribe down below, leave any comments if you'd like to, and I will see you in a couple of weeks.
Though you've been in my life for 2 days, but those days